I've been asked time and time again, like, what is your business plan? And my business plan comprises of two words: have fun.
What are your thoughts on creating an open source Jira or Jira-like tool?
When the fun starts diminishing, that's probably the point where I need to hire people to take care of the things that I don't find fun to do.
Today's sponsor is going to make reassigning your JSM tickets so much easier. Make sure you check out Resolution's out of office assistant for Jira and JSM using the link down below and have this app automatically reassign issues for you. And it also reassigns approvers whenever your approvers are out of office.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Summer of Atlassian. Today I have Mark joining me, and we are going to have a blast here because I'm looking at your background and there's already so many questions.
Yeah, that's my other hobby.
Well, Mark, welcome to the show here, and thank you
Yeah,
for joining us.
thanks for having me.
So let's get started with just the very beginning, Mark. I don't think that you and I have actually ever met unless we met at Teams, but Teams
We
was a
met
blur.
at Team 24, but very briefly
Yeah, I was
because
gonna
I
say that
hijacked
whole.
Jan from Scott, and then you were in there a little bit, and then
Okay, yeah, that whole week was a blur to me, so, I apologize. I figured it's so much I where I'm going today, I guess, with, like, this channel and the popularity of it, it's like, a lot of people recognize me, but I'm horrible with faces and names. So, Mark, so why don't you tell us a little bit about you then and who you are? We'll hold off I don't wanna say hold off on Marvolution, but let's start you off at the beginning, and then we'll build up to your company here.
Yeah, so I'm Mark. Been coding for a long while. If I go back, it's like in 2007, I finished my bachelor in informatics in the Netherlands. And as one does, you go and join like a big recruiting firm to basically be a number that types. uh, and I quickly realized that all the interesting open source projects and all the interesting stuff that was out there in the Java community was just not used or was even frowned upon to use. But in my experience, I was getting responses from like the Spring Framework guys quicker than Oracle or IBM and the likes. So I just started playing, hobbying around, just outside of the paid company projects. Just see what's out there, see what I could learn, and through my own little like hacking around and playing, I decided, well, why not just release it back to the open source community? So everything was Apache license version 2, and what I learned, maybe someone else could learn from what I did. So have at it, have fun. But I quickly got an interesting and a lot of different projects, or a lot of different little things that I was working on. And as one does, you start organizing your thoughts. So I started looking around for like what kind of a tool is out there that can help me organize my thoughts. And that's when I stumbled upon Atlassian and a little known product they had back then called Jira. Uh, this was back in the day when versioning was still like 3.10 or something like
I
that.
was gonna say, this would have been still when it was like $10 for a perpetual license of Jira, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Back in the days when even I think it was like Mike did the design, or at least was heavily influenced with that little Atlas
The,
puppet, I think, that he made.
the Charlie logo
The
that
Charlie, yeah.
yeah. Was that Mike's doing?
I think it was Mike's doing. I may be wrong, but
Have you
correct
ever
me if
met
I'm wrong.
Mike? Have you ever
No,
hung out with the
no,
founder? No?
no. I only met Scott at team last time,
Okay.
but yeah. So I stumbled upon them. They gave me a free license because what I did was open source and they supported open source projects. So I was like, yay, give me my. So I just basically grabbed everything that they had, like, gimme, gimme, gimme. And but I was using Hudson back then for like continuous integration stuff. Later on with continuous delivery and deployment. But I didn't like the integration. I didn't like how that worked. Uh, it's still now with Jenkins that they add comments to issues to integrate build results, and I didn't like that, so I just thought, well, they have an API that you can build plugins for this as Java as well, so why not try and see
Do it.
if I can make something that fits better of or how I want to see build results. And that led to like late 2007, early 2008, where I published my first Jira plugin on the plugin exchange. This is pre-marketplace. Uh, just in the same thought, like I like it, maybe someone else likes it, have fun. And very quickly, there were big and small companies that were using the app. I was still just doing it as a hobby outside of work. Maintained it, people liked it. I think in the peak time it was something like 3 to 3,500 installs worldwide, and I had a lot of fun just coding that. And then in 2015, I got the opportunity to actually formalize a business around Marvolution. Or Marvolution, the open source projects became Marvolution, the company, basically, and uh, did some contracting work to pay the bills. But and then in 2018, I first released Jira Cloud support for the app because there was a lot of people that wanted that. And then I think a couple of months to a year later, the official data center support came in because before it was just, yeah, you enable it for data center and everything is fine. And then was it around 2018, 2019, they actually had that whole approval process that they introduced for data center apps. So you had to go through a whole flow to get the app certified and
Mhm.
that it was actually working right and whatnot and test it. So I went through that whole bit, and yeah, that basically is. And then this year I was finally able to get the teams. I wanted to go to teams when it was still called Summit, but being it all open source and free, I didn't have the money to go. And then I formalized the company, but then life takes over with having kids, moving house, and stuff like that. All nicely packed in the time frame where Summit
Right.
usually is. So this year I was finally able to go. So that was a lot of fun.
So many different questions, so many different just paths that I wanna take here. But I wanna start off with the open source discussion. Open source, I don't think a lot of people know this about me, but some one of my very first jobs out of college was working on an open source project. So it's an early passion of mine that I haven't even relived or thought about until this moment that you started talking about open source. Yeah, just in 2009. Have you heard of OSCON, the open source conference by O'Reilly?
Yeah,
Yeah, so I got to
heard
go.
of it, never went.
Yeah, so I got to go. I got to go to that conference. It's one of the very first conferences I have ever been to in my life, and it was one of those like at the right place at the right time. I was in Silicon Valley in San Jose, and this is usually where it used to be hosted, like way back in like 2009, 2010 timeframe. And so I went like I was just there on a school field trip, and the chaperone that was there, he was at a coffee shop or something, and he realized a bunch of people were wearing these lanyards. He asked around. Turns out you could go for free. So so we he signed us all up, and we all went over, and we learned about open source, and this is like the first exposure that I ever had to like to open source, right? And it's an interesting phenomenon, open source software, because I think you said it very well, where you're like, hey, my entire involvement is in open source. It's kind of hard to make money off of open source.
No, it's just that it's the thing I found the most interesting back in the day when I started with open source is that the sheer number of people that you can reach out to that can help you. You can I've spent probably hours on end like filling out support tickets and whatnot when I just had a small issue in one of the Oracle or IBM or what is it, Bayer WebLogic stuff. And then I had this very small thing that I didn't got to work on my Spring Framework project that I was working on. I asked the question, and like 5 minutes later, I got the answer to actually go on, and it was that was such an eye opener to see like, wow, this is really, it's just not the one company. Like there's the whole ecosystem behind it.
Right. And have you ever read Daniel Pink's book called Drive?
No, but that's because I'm not that fond of reading.
You're not that fond of reading? So there's this guy on the internet, you may have seen it because it's a very popular concept now. I think he came up with it like, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, but there's this concept of like what motivates people to do good work, right? And when you're a what they call, I guess, a blue collar worker or somebody that works with their hands, right? Manufacturing type of work, you're incentivized by more money, more better output out of you, right? So you give somebody enough money, they go forth and do a much better job. But then he's like, we try to do that for white collar people or people that think work with their head, not so much with their hands, right? And he's like, they realize they weren't motivated the same way. They didn't get more money did not equal more output. Like he was like, this doesn't make sense. So the whole premise of the book is that there's this thing called, well, he calls it drive, right? But there's what motivates a cognitive worker like yourself, right? And it's autonomy, mastery, and purpose, right? And so the examples that he uses for like how does this actually work in the real world is when he's like looking at Linux and he's looking at Apache, right? Some of the biggest open source projects out there, all maintained for free by people that could make a lot of money but choose not to, and rather just work on it for the for simple fulfillment that it gives them autonomy, it gives them purpose, and it gives them mastery, right? And so, any thoughts on that? Have you ever heard that before? Like,
I have heard of that, or at least those concepts. And nowadays, because I am, or Marvolution forms like a legal business, I've been asked time and time again, like, what is your business plan? And my business plan comprises of two words: have fun. As long as I can have fun, then
that's
I
all they
don't I
need.
don't need. I had the same discussion also a while back with my brother, who was in a position like, do I take this job that pays more, or do I go or keep the job that pays more, or do I move on to maybe a better place, but maybe have a bit of reduction in pay? And I was like, well, if you want to have a lot of money but not be fulfilled in your job, then you will just take that money to a shrink when you need to
It's
get
just a transfer of
put
money,
right
right?
again. So in the end of the day, you have the same amount of money. Now it would be, unless of course that person is a very pleasant person to speak with, but assuming that you don't go to a shrink just for fun, you will probably be better off just taking a lower paying job but having more fun at doing that job. And uh, luckily for me, it worked out. It's still working out. Like Marvolution is doing very well in the Atlassian ecosystem. I was able to attend quite a couple of conferences this year. So, but still, the drive is have fun. Uh, People have said to me, "Well, you can start hiring people, you can grow, you can make it bigger, or whatever." And I'm like, "Yeah, but why? What's the motivation to get bigger? It's yeah to
Have
make more money. Yeah, but why? I can pay my bills now and have some left over. So why?
have you ever heard of
What's
yeah.
yeah?
Have you ever heard of the story of the fisherman from and the guy in Mexico and the New York attorney that went to this town in Mexico?
Wasn't it about like a fishing pole? You have one and you eat for yourself, and then
He
I
so
think
so
it was
this
something.
little story is this New York guy comes over to this vacation hub in Mexico and then he wanders off the beaten path and finds this fisherman fishing and he's like he's got a pretty good load that he got out of the ocean. And he's like, what do you do to all the extra fish? And he's like, oh well, I just take it down to the town center and like I sell some of it, right? Like I take what I need for me and my family and I just get rid of the rest. And he's like, you should get a bigger net, right? Like get more fish. And he's like,
No,
and then what? He's like, well, you'll sell more. And then the fisherman's like, and then what? And he's like, well, you you get like another buddy or two to go out there with you, and you can catch twice as much or three times as much, right? And then he's like, and then what do you do there? And he's like, well, you just you sell that too, right? And he's like, well, then where? Like, he's like, well, then what happens? Like, well, then you get a boat, and you're off on a boat. You got a whole crew, and then he's like, and then what? And so basically, long story short, the New Yorker is just convincing him that he's got to be build bigger and bigger and bigger international markets, world
Yeah.
trade, right? Crazy, crazy build out. And then he goes, and then what? Like to the end, right? And he's like, well, that's the best part. He's like, you sell the whole thing, you go and retire to a small little town in Mexico, and you just fish for yourself. And he's like, "Isn't that what I'm doing now?" Like, I'm already fulfilled with life today, and I love that story because it always reminds me of, like, I think sometimes we get overwhelmed or caught up with, we gotta grow, 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 but sometimes there's just
Yeah.
enough, right? There's just enough, it's enough.
Yeah, yeah, just take joy in what you have. I think it's really like more. No, it's sometimes even with the big billionaires that they get upset if they don't get their $1 billion payday. Like, you have more than enough. Like, why? Why even cry about it? Just shut up and enjoy your life.
Now, at what point did you realize that, like, this was making you happy, that this was fun for you? Was it, like, right out of the gate, or did it take you a while? Because I'm assuming, again, there's not a whole lot of money in open source, right? So, I
Open
guess
source in a sense is yeah, is free. You don't get any. Uh, uh, by its sheer nature, but or at least in terms of like money, but in terms of like satisfaction that you can help someone and that person is actually grateful for the fact that you helped them. So that's it's not just you giving your code or your project or your whatever. It's also that you get back from people that reach out to you and say, "Oh, thank you for providing this. You know, this really helped me." Or there's really a two-way street in that. And what I found is that in the paid gigs that I was doing before, being a consultant in the big firms, is that they say thanks, but they don't really. There is this tone behind it that they kind of say thanks because they need to, and not because they want to. And there was this really odd sensation or sense in those meetings, and also the fact that the higher up in the pay level you were at the project, the more you're allowed to speak, and the lower you were, you just need to sit there and shut up. And yeah, that really, I didn't really like that. They didn't fulfill me in a sense. And then stepping into the whole open source game, you just get so many connections. I know hundreds of people that I've never met and probably never ever will, but I had such a great engagement with them in learning together to implement a stupid thing that you thought of just for fun, or an actual problem because someone came up. I remember the very early days when I was working on my first Jira app, or a plugin, that is as it was called back then. There was a guy also named Mark. He was from the UK, and he actually helped me. He was a client in a sense, so he was using my project, but he was really engaged and came back and thought up of features and help with documentation. Because as a developer, I suck at writing docs, but he was really able to help out and get that. So you had that real sense that you were helping someone. You got real, yeah, what's the word? Real satisfaction from that, and that gave a lot of joy. And then, of course, the tricky things come. Okay, well, how can I combine the two? How can I have fun and get paid? Uh,
That's really the secret sauce right there.
yeah, yeah, that was the secret sauce. So yeah, I was never really searching for it. So I was able to get satisfaction of work by doing it in the off hours and not so much as my paid job. Uh, but then I was approached by Sonatype, so the people behind Maven,
Mhm.
to do some contracting work for them, specifically for Atlassian related or ecosystem related builds. So that kind of got me in, and then and they said, "Well, okay, we want to hire you." So that got me started on thinking, okay, how can I uh, step away from the paid, unpleasant world in the Netherlands and move to a more a paid and have fun kind of environment. So that started off with contracting with them for a while, and then in the background, I already started thinking, okay, well, what can I do with my own apps in the Atlassian ecosystem? Because now the marketplace was there. They had the whole paid via Atlassian
Hmm.
thing. Because previously, like all the paid apps were, you needed to build your own licensing and your own billing and financing system. And I was like, I don't want to spend the time on all that.
Right.
So they came out with paid via Atlassian. I thought, oh, that's a good deal. Can I utilize this? And then, of course, the interesting question comes: how can I get people to pay for something that's open source and essentially free, and was always free? Uh, so I thought about, well, what can I do in that, and in the end, I opted. Well, keep I'm gonna keep everything open source, but there will still be a free version in the marketplace available that I will keep updating. But next to that, I will add a paid version of the app with SLA-based support and more features and stuff like that.
Right.
And luckily enough, that stuck. People actually started to pay, and were happy to pay for something that was previously free. Uh, and even in the meanwhile, like what was it, last year or the year before, uh, Taylor from Atlassian reached out and said, "Well, can you? We were thinking about building this Jenkins integration, and you already have one, so we wanted to chat." And I helped them get started with their official integration. I said, "Okay, well, you have fun with that part. I'm going to focus on my thing." And even with that, it's still going very well. So yeah, I'm still able to, yeah, fulfill my business plan of having fun each and every day. Yeah.
That's good. And you said a couple of very interesting things that I'm gonna want to come back to, but I did want to pivot a little bit on the discussion, still within open source, but I just wanted to kind of pick your brain here a little bit, right? And Jira, as you know, it gets more and more expensive every day, right? And I think
Yeah.
it's one of these tools where, especially someone like you who has seen Jira from those, it was free to just $10 to now you kind of have to go get, like some kidney transplant just to be able to afford it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on creating an open source Jira or Jira like tool?
Um, it would be fun to build, I think. Um, the downside it would be a lot of fun to build it and to see it grow. The downside of it is, like, with the market as it is right now, or at least how I see it, with Atlassian having its
Footprint.
well-known name, it's going to be hard to compete with that, even though uh, yeah, the billing has skyrocketed.
But I'm
Uh,
assuming that there's at least a need or a want, maybe a desire for a server version of Jira.
Oh, definitely. Oh, definitely. And I'm still pissed because they killed data center. And I don't understand, from a technical coding perspective, I don't understand it, because the difference between data center and server is one property file, and that's it. I don't understand why they, from a technical level, why they did that. If they want to push everyone to cloud so that they can get paid more, basically. But
Right.
I
That's the only
don't.
thing, right? And that's kind of like why I wanted to pick your head a little bit more, right? Because fundamentally, right, especially with you with an open source perspective, it kind of stings, right? It stings a little bit with like this model. Obviously, Atlassian's a Fortune or a publicly traded company, right? So they're accountable to shareholders. But within the ecosystem, it still leaves a bit of a bad taste, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Yeah, it's I don't like the whole stakeholder
Model.
value stuff model. I think it's utterly wrong, uh, because the numbers go down, and because those numbers go down, people have to. get canned for then the numbers become magically okay again for
Right.
some weird reason. I never understood that business model whatsoever. And I've heard, do you know Simon Sinek?
Yeah.
So,
Like start with why. I
yeah,
thought you don't
so
read.
with why
I thought you're not a
I
reader.
didn't read, but he has like YouTube channel that I can follow, so I don't have to read his book. But I think it was him that said that he came across a company where the CEO was pushed by stakeholders to say you need to lay off people because business is doing that well, and he actually said "f you" to the
Yeah.
stakeholders and said we're not going to do that. Instead, everyone needs to take like a month or 2 month unpaid leave. Everyone in the entire hierarchy of the business. So even this, from the CEO all the way down to the cleaner and all the way back up again. And what they actually found was that the people who couldn't afford it more would take more time off for the people that couldn't afford it. And by the end, they overcome the crisis and were better off because of it, because there was more motivation within the entire workforce to work together
Right.
because they knew each other had each other's back. And I like that model a lot more.
Yeah.
And
I think I think
if I
Google
look,
recently went through that scenario,
uh,
right? They had a large shareholder say, "You're paying your folks way too much money. Either fire them or cut back on the pay." And I'm like, I feel like it's so ungrateful, I think, right? Because like the reason you're a shareholder is because the company is doing well, and the reason the company does well is because their employees are happy and they're putting out good product. And that is a very treacherous thought to have of like take away the happiness,
yeah,
right? And expect double the result. Like
yeah, but
does it
it's also I never understand that because I had it myself as well. Is that no, you're in a company and then they don't make you numbers, so you either get laid off or you don't get your promotion. But it's not based on your results. It's just based on, well, you're this number that just has to go. So, and assuming that the guy that you're fortunate enough to stay, but the guy next to you is gonna go, like how motivated are you to do more work because next year it could be your turn? Like where does the motivation go? So in that sense, I never understood it. I never understood why they can't uh, uh, server. I don't believe they should have. It even with server and data center and cloud, that they can live together
they,
happily like they did for
what
years.
yeah, what they should have done is a bold move. They should have just popped it back to being $10
Yeah, or
or open
open
source
source
it
the whole
out.
thing. Like
Yeah,
make it
open source
free.
it out.
Like if you don't want to build on it or you don't want to
Maintain
spend
it.
time on it, open source the thing and you know let the community handle it. I'm sure that probably one of the bigger vendors in the ecosystem would be more than happy to, or maybe there would be like a whole bunch of vendors that could stick together to do it. But yeah, it's an interesting thought to make something like that, and
Well,
especially with the whole server going.
well, I'm forming a group, so I'm like Nick Fury over here. I'm forming a team here.
Well, you can count me in. It's that would
It's
be a
just
lot of fun
yeah,
to do.
we had a little joke that, Scott I don't know if you heard the news, right? Scott's quitting or he's stepping away, and
Yeah,
my first our first little joke that we did on the Jira Life. Have you seen the Jira Life? Have you seen my podcast
yeah,
that I have
yeah.
been running? Yeah.
Or at least I've seen a couple of
Yeah,
episodes. Yeah.
I'm representing a little bit, right? But our first my first little joke was he's probably quitting to go build like a Jira server version that he can just give away
Yeah,
or
take a
something.
copy of his code with him and call it Charlie.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think it would be an interesting thing to because I think with everything historically, right? Like you get complacent when you get to the top. And I think you said something along those lines of Atlassian's market share is just so great, right? But that's also its weakness, right? Because you can get very comfortable in knowing that all the other tools around you suck. Right?
Yeah,
And then,
that's also true. Yeah.
and for the most part, yeah, and for the most part, mostly almost every other tool that's out there that is a competitor to Jira, it's not the best.
Uh,
But even then, Jira is not the best either, in my opinion.
well, it's it's not the best. No, it's very good at what it does, but one of the downsides of Jira is that you can basically do anything, and there are guardrails, but yeah, by the time you hit those, you fall off a cliff.
So
So there are so many options what you can do, and if there is no guidance in it on how to use it, you will just quickly like blow up and have a ginormous instance, which is becoming a
Right.
nightmare to maintain, which you probably have seen quite a few of.
Yeah. So now I want to pick your brain on that because you just hit something that I resonate with a lot, right? So when Atlassian at Team 24 gets on stage and says, "We're merging Jira Work Management with Jira Software," in my mind, that was like everybody was excited, and I was like, "Holy crap, this is going to be the worst thing ever." Because my defense for my statement is Jira today at least has some guardrail, right? You still have the foundation of Agile to kind of lean against. Whether it's good or bad, the sprints, the epics, the stories, like it's still there from a foundation. You
Uh,
can still innovate within that, but it's still there, right? Like if I always tell people, like if you're an agile shop, you're gonna want to use Jira software, right? If you're not, then that's what Jira Work Management is for. But I felt like Atlassian basically killed agile, or at least killed their dependency on the term agile, right?
uh,
By letting you use Jira for whatever, right? It's not just Jira and it does whatever. But that scares me because with all that power comes a lot of uncertainty. And I just wanted to pick your brain on what you think
uh.
about that announcement.
Well, the first thing I thought was, hey, haven't I seen this before? Because before Jira software existed, there was this little app known Greenhopper, which basically provided like the whole or the like the Scrum and Kanban and boards and all that agile stuff, all that agile goodness. And they were acquired by Atlassian, and then I think it was a couple of months or 6 months later where Jira Software was born, and then the split came. You had just Jira Core and Jira Software, and then Jira Core was renamed like a gazillion times, uh, uh, and now they're moving back to one. I think yeah, it's I think it kind of makes sense from a company perspective, because if you want your whole company to use Jira software or Jira as a tool, then it would be a lot easier to just have Jira and then have your project or your server project or your software projects
Yeah.
and
But
your
but
finance
that's not the
projects
part
and whatnot. But
that's not the part that concerns me. The part that concerns me is that now anything goes, right? You don't need epics. You can have any issue type of whatever type you want, manipulate anything and everything you want. And that's the part that scares me because like, well, what do you do now? There's no more rules.
yeah. So from a more of a project management perspective, yeah, that could be quite interesting to see how scary the installations become. And I'm also, and then more from a technical perspective, like and you've probably seen that with server and data center versions, the bigger the instances become, the more unstable it becomes, the harder it becomes to maintain, the bigger the nightmare essentially becomes. And now Jira just being Jira in the cloud, that's going to be a big nightmare, at least from the people that need to operate it. If there are like no guardrails, so I think that they will probably I think that they will probably start off with something like no guardrails, have fun, and then they will see impact in their own deployment and start. Okay, we need to get people back again, get a bit more guardrails in, maybe use a bit more of the project templates. But yeah, when it comes down to like what type of issue you use or what type of fields do you use, I think it's going to be a lot down to discipline
Right.
of the people that work
Yeah, and maybe some
to
really good
keep
Jira
that.
admins and Jira consultants out there.
Yeah.
But that's really like a hard part though, right? Because like every Jira admin, like they have their certifications, but the certifications, as great as they are, they coach you through the technical aspects of it. But at the end of the day, I craft Jira to solve business problems, right? And every business problem and
No.
every business has a different problem. So like it's such a unique solution all the time. But I think you're just gonna need a stronger Jira admin that can push back or coach you or guide you better so you don't hurt yourself in the long term.
Yeah, previously, like way back, the admins were like the people that the company knew were around, but they were like hidden in this dark room in the office where only email could come in for things to get done. It reminds me of IT Crowd. I don't know if you know that
I have
British
never.
sitcom. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, I actually I have heard of it now that you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but nowadays I think it's a lot more that admins need to listen to what the problem to what the customer thinks the problem is, or the user thinks the problem is, and then translate that into something that actually helps in solving that problem. Because 9 out of 10 times people say they want a new form, but do they? Maybe they want something else to be fulfilled, or need something other than that. Uh, so it becomes a lot more uh, yeah, people related, or people skilled, communication related, to
Yeah, it's
figure
gonna be
out
a
what
lot
is
less.
needed and then how that works.
Yeah, because I think that the role of the Jira admin historically was systems administrative, right? Where you needed to know Linux, you needed to know your command lines, you needed to know firewalls and security and networks and all that good stuff. And then you kind of, because that's how I started off, right? I was like more of a systems admin, and then they're like, hey, just manage this Jira tool as well, right?
Uh,
But then you kind of start going into that area, which was more workflows and more user management, but still had to worry about the firewalls and the ports and the databases, and you still needed to know how to use your help me with the databases, Postgres, right?
Postgres, yeah, and
Yeah,
Oracle,
so you
and
still
all
need it.
the
So like, but you started to blur things. But now, if you're just in the cloud, you don't even know what Postgres is, or
yeah, yeah. You
at least you don't
probably
need to
don't even
know.
know to have Linux anymore. You
Right, you
just
don't
need
need
to
to know
know,
any of
like,
that.
yeah.
So yeah, so that then is gonna slowly iterate then to like at some point, I don't even think you're gonna need to know what a workflow is or how to add or how to create a workflow, but rather just know how to architect a workflow and
uh,
have the AI do it for you.
yeah. It's a good thing they call it Atlassian intelligence instead of artificial intelligence, because I'm growing sick of the term.
Yeah, it's it it's so weird how AI has just kind of overtaken everybody, right? And it's like if you're not in AI or not your business is not doing something with AI, it's like maybe you're doing something wrong. Like I feel like that's
Yeah,
like the common reception of the market today.
it actually reminds me a lot of Agile before, or at least in the Netherlands it was. It was just hyped, and even like project manager, who had no clue what actually Agile actually was, or what it could do for your project. They were just
Mm.
screaming Agile from the top of the building, like, we're doing it and we're great at it. But at the end of the day, they were still just doing old school waterfall projects. They had no clue what they were actually talking about. And I get the sense sometimes that AI has that same ginormous hype bubble where everyone just starts doing it because somehow you need to in order to be credible, as you said. And I'm like, they also ask me to use AI, so I will start using it when it becomes value. If there's no
Yeah.
value, then I
I
don't see
want
a point.
I wonder how much of the AI craze is gonna be like 3D TVs. 'Cause everybody for a period of time was like 3D TVs, and all these TVs were shipping with these 3D glasses in the theaters, and everybody was on the 3D bandwagon.
Yeah, yeah. And nowadays you hardly see them.
Yeah, then it just kind of poofed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I think AI, for better or for worse, it's going to revolutionize the way we work. So I don't think it'll be a trend, but
No,
I think the over hypiness of it, I think it'll die down because I think it'll just become common mainstream, right? Like,
yeah.
it'll
When
just
everyone is done generating images and
yeah.
getting homework done for school, then we will probably. I do see a lot of value in AI. I do see that it can help a lot with. You get this book that I don't like to read. AI give me a summary so that I need to know what's in it, and stuff like that. Or I have this connection with this person what I've been back and forth about. Give me a summary of what's going on. things like that. I think that can really help. But yeah, right now it's not like there's gonna be a robot walking in anytime soon that's gonna hand me my coffee whenever I want it. You
Right.
know,
Well,
so
maybe the Jetsons might be a little farther out than we think. But it's still an interesting thing to think about, right? Where I think the like when you watch movies like Wally, right? Like what will happen with society when we create these weaker people, right? Because I feel like
Uh,
um and you could probably appreciate this more than anybody else, right? Because when you work for open source, I think we're going back to the beginning of our theme, right? Right now we still work for purpose, right? We still work for some masteries, for some autonomy, for some purpose of like the things that we work on, we have some fun. But what happens when the fun kind of gets taken care of for you, right? Because you don't have to
uh,
lift a finger and you inherently become a lazier society.
yeah, I think that would probably be something like a downfall.
You think that
If you don't have like, why do I get up in the morning to have fun? I want to have fun that day. And in the end, so like there's this thing that I do of myself, and at the end of the day, when I go to bed, I said, did I have fun? Now,
right?
sometimes I didn't have that much fun today, or on a day before I went to bed, especially it's like a production issue that I needed to take care of, and it's like 3 o'clock at night before I finally hit the sack. But there are fun moments on the day when whether it's building my Lego models or playing around with my kids and working around the house or helping a customer with a support ticket. There's a lot of fun things, and I think, and or at least I need to have that. I cannot. I'm one of those people that cannot sit still. So even now, I'm sitting still, but my hands are constantly moving because it's one of
Yeah,
those.
but
And I
but I
think
really
yeah, it's going to be tricky.
but I really do see the value of AI in a more Jarvis fashion, right? Where like Iron Man
Yeah,
leverages AI to help. It's almost like like a super smart conversation system, right?
uh,
Where you can be pondering or thinking about something and have it kind of inform you, but it can also go off and do the busy work, right?
no,
When he was like, "Hey, here's take this new element and like render
yeah,
it,"
go
right?
build
And
it.
yeah, go build it. It's like, yeah, so we'll go do that while he goes off to a cocktail party
Yeah, exactly. I'll design a suit and you go build it. No, those things are, but then you still have the fun in,
in
or you
building.
still have your fun element. So the fun element then in the Iron Man case is kind of like designing the suit, whether the actual building is something I can take care of that. I don't need to be bothered with it. So you still need to have the element of fun, uh, and I hope that we won't end up like with all the big people in. What is it in Wally, the movie in the
Yeah,
spaceship, just
just
tumbling around doing absolutely nothing.
right.
That's I
But I
hope
but I
if
think
we go
most
that way, I hope I die before then. It's not
I
gonna
think
be a
most
lot
will
of fun.
default to that though, right? Because again, it goes back to this purpose, right? What is what drives you? And I think when AI truly gets to like the levels that they're predicting that it'll get to, I think a lot of us are gonna wake up one day, and hopefully, like you, like hopefully, I'm dead by the time that happens, right? But I think there's gonna be a moment where somebody's gonna wake up one day and go, "Huh, I don't have to do anything today,"
Yeah,
and I think that's a scary thought because
it
that's
it
gonna
becomes scary if that's not the first time you've had that thought. If you wake up and you've been waking up for like a week, and every day it's like I don't need to do anything, then you probably need to find find something to do. Even if
yeah.
it's just to mess with the system so that someone else has something to do. It's
We're just
yeah,
gonna have a society of hackers that just try to break AI,
yeah, exactly.
and then Terminator's gonna come to life.
Yeah, yeah, something like that. Yeah, or we end up like Neo in the Matrix.
Right. Then yeah, then you really won't even know what's real, what's not real. Oh, man. Yeah, let's just hope that either A, AI doesn't get there, or B, we're dead by then.
Yeah, yeah, or we're smart enough to stop it. But yeah,
Or
it's
time traveling has been figured out, and we go back and we take care of Sam Altman before he makes that announcement.
exactly.
But now, since we're down to the last 15 minutes here, I wanted to pivot a little bit and talk about teams. So you kind of mentioned briefly how and why this was your first teams, but walk me through it then. So 14, was it 14 years in the wake in the making for you? What
Uh,
were your impressions? What were your thoughts? What were you overwhelmed, underwhelmed?
uh, I was a little bit overwhelmed, but that's just the sheer size of it. Like taking a 50-minute walk from your hotel room just to get to the conference
Were you
to the
in the
conference room
Venetian?
was, yeah, I was in the Venetian,
Okay, yeah, because that's rookie mistake number 1, not being in the Venetian.
yeah. No, I'm lazy by nature, so I was like, yeah, I will take the hotel option that the sign up sheet gave me. So that, but no, I really enjoyed it. I really liked finally being able to see people face to face and shake their hand. For instance, like I mentioned, Jens Schumacher, I connected with him like a long way back, and we had like intermittent contact a while. And now that he's doing his own release, we had a bit more contact. And now just being able to shake his hand for the first time, that was just a lot of fun to connect with people. I was there more for the
For the people connection?
for the people connection. Uh, Oddly enough, whenever I go to conferences, the content itself, other than the keynote, are not so satisfying. Uh, this time around, I went to a couple of sessions, and there was a lot of reading off the projector, and I'm like, yeah, I can do that at home. I don't need
Yeah.
to be here
I
to
I
do
didn't go
that.
to a single session this year at all,
And
other
I,
than the
I
keynote.
did went to all the keynotes, and yeah, it's the keynotes is less impressive than it was before. Like way back when they first started, it was like we built this and it works and you can go use it now. And now it says we built this and there's this little asterisk like coming soon,
Coming
and
soon.
90
Yeah.
90% is coming soon. And I'm like, if it's all coming soon, then there's no point in talking about it.
Why do
Uh,
you think I'm doing these videos? I so I'm at Teams, right? And I'm sitting right there in the front row. And when they announced, like, again, this whole Jira software, Jira work management, we now have Jira. My first thought was great. At last killed Agile. But my second thought was like, great. I got to redo all my videos because the
yeah,
UI. Because the moment I saw that UI go sideways on me, I was like, dang it, they just updated the whole everything.
yeah, but it's and or not update your videos. You just wait a couple of years because they then decide that's left it was not a thing and we're gonna back to the top.
Back to
I
the
actually
top.
made a joke to one of the Atlassians, say I'm waiting for right bottom
Yeah.
instead of top left, because it's left top left top. They made the switch a couple of times already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, when they said it's gonna come out in 2 to 3 months, well, it's been 2 months since Team,
Yeah.
right? We
It's,
got June 1st, July 1st, so yeah, so it's been a little we're entering the 3rd month now, and I was like, I don't I'm gonna redo all my videos, but I can't hold my breath because what was it? I think even the AI portion, right? The Atlassian Intelligence, the version 1, that took like 10 months to roll out from the announcement. I'm like, I'm gonna be waiting for a while. So that's why this
uh,
whole summer series where I'm like interviewing people, this is just me stalling, waiting for that dumb UI to get updated so I can redo all my videos. I'm like, how do I talk Atlassian without actually showing Jira? Interview people,
yeah, no,
talk to
it's a
people.
good thing. Good thing to have fun that way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because I
it's
know I'm gonna do the work, but I'm like, man, because I was gonna restart my series because I get a lot of feedback on the videos, right? And so a lot of my old videos, interestingly enough, ironically enough, weirdly enough, my one of my most popular videos is like my second video that I ever made. And so, but I've come such a long way since that first video. Jira has come such a long way since that first video. And so I'm like, I feel like I owe it to the people, right? Because running a YouTube channel really is more like running an open source project, right? Like
uh,
everything I do here is for free, other than the fact that I get AdSense and the occasional sponsor, right?
uh,
But it's me waking up at 5 a.m. Saturday, Sundays when I should be asleep to hit record.
yeah, well, it must be. Yeah, it is quite early for you now,
Well, so not
I
only
think.
is it quite early for, so I'm really excited I had this conversation with you because not only is it 6 a.m. or started. We started at 6 a.m. But it's a holiday here in the U.S. It's our Independence Day.
Oh
So,
yeah, it's the fourth.
yeah, so it's the 4th of July. So I intentionally stacked all my interviews to be on with European folk because I was like, well, it's going to be the one day where I don't have anything to do. So let's talk to let's talk to folks on the other side of the pond.
Yeah. Oh, it's a good one.
Yeah. In retrospect, though, I have back to back to back interviews, so probably I think the fun part's gonna diminish throughout the day.
Well, at least you start off with a smile, so that's good.
Yeah. So I didn't want to ask you kind of just as we close out here, and we did talk a little bit about teams, but Mark Rober, have you seen his videos? YouTuber Mark Rober.
Name rings a bell, but I don't think I've
He
seen
has
any
got
of
that
his
glitter
latest.
bomb. He's got that Porsche pirate that people steal the package, so he has like that bomb that throws glitter and fart spray and punishes people that
No,
steal packages. No. He
no,
bu
I don't
he's
think
also
so.
got the squirrels, so he's got, like, mazes that obstacle courses for the squirrels that he built in his backyard. Great YouTuber. So he's a engineer. He's a NASA engineer turned Apple engineer turned YouTuber, and, they made a little commercial about his life.
No,
There's another YouTuber channel that they take content creators and they create movies from their life, but they make like a trailer because
no.
they don't have the budget to make like a full length movie, but they'll do like a 2 to 3 minute clip, kind of teasing their life if it was going to be a movie. And in that movie or in that trailer for Mark Rober, when YouTube was for fun, right? YouTube was what he did as a distraction to the main
no.
job, working at Apple, working at NASA. But there came a moment where Apple, because you know how Apple is, the opposite of open source, right?
Very much, yeah.
They basically told him like, "Hey, it's either us or the YouTube channel," right? Like you have to pick
No.
which one, right? And so there's a line in there that stuck to me, that resonated with me, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it, which is if I go do the open source thing, the fun thing, and I have to turn it into a business, doesn't it lose its fun? So I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that. I was like, because you do your coding, your open source for fun, but right now you have kids, you have Lego models that you got to buy. At what point, like, were you scared that now you had to make money on the out,
I
like
was
your fun part had to be your business or had to be your money generator?
I I wasn't scared that it wouldn't be fun anymore since I enjoy coding. I enjoy solving like those kind of problems, whether it's other things you wake that you dream up while you're drunk, or just real world problems that you want to solve. So I don't I wasn't scared that that fun portion would linger or would leave. The I was scared about, okay, I've had so much fun giving stuff for free, and people have been taking it for free, and how do I now get them to actually pay because I've got bills to pay? And that was the for me this the scary bit, like, okay, how do I convert from a free open source to a paid open source model? And
Which exists, right? Like I think GitHub originally was like that, and a couple
yeah,
many others, right? Even Linux, Red Hat, right? And that's how we have RHEL.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
there's
there,
such
yeah,
thing
so
as
that
paid open source for people that don't know.
it does work, but yeah, it took a while for me to find out, like, how do I do it, and of course what price do you attach to it. You want to make enough, but you don't want to undersell yourself in a sense. Uh, so yeah, that was for me the more tricky part. I wasn't scared that it wouldn't be fun anymore, because yeah, as I said, the coding stuff is something that I have a lot of fun in, and that's still there. Unfortunately, now being a business, you also have accounting and insurance and all that mumbo jumbo. Luckily enough, I don't have like any HR because I still do it all by myself. But yeah, it's
Do
yeah.
you ever foresee a future where you do maybe start hiring and start building a team? Like, where do you see Marvolution going 5, 10 years?
I honestly don't know. Uh, I've always said that when the fun starts diminishing, that's probably the point where I need to hire people to take care of the things that I don't find
Fun.
fun to do. Of course, you have an accountant that helps you with a lot, and I've hired Brighttrail because I don't want to do marketing, or I'm not that good at it. So get some people on board to do that. The same now with like ISO and SOC 2 certifications that I'm working on. Initially, I thought I'm going to do that myself, and then I quickly got a generous headache from all those documents and the reading and the writing that's involved with that. So I got people on board for that. I imagine that as soon as support really becomes a drain, then maybe I'll outsource that. Uh, but yeah,
No,
it's more of a, like event driven in a sense that if the fun starts diminishing, then I'll start looking at, okay, what do I need to do so that I have fun again, but don't have to work for for someone else.
and I know we got minutes left here, but I want to ask a deeper question. Fun. We I think this has been the theme of this talk today, right?
Uh,
But you really, you as an individual, as a human, you need to really have a deep understanding of what fun means for you, because it's fun is so different for everybody, right? But
uh,
I think a lot of people struggle, right? I think a lot of people would struggle to go, hey, what is fun for me? Like, well, right? So how do you,
yeah.
like, how do you define what is fun for you?
Uh, yeah, putting a definition on it. It's
Well,
I'm more
maybe it's
of
hard
a
to put a definition, but it's obviously something you feel because you know where the line is for you.
yeah, no, it's for me it's a feeling that you did some, or that you worked on something, or you did something, and you not only enjoy the outcome, but you also enjoyed the process of getting there. So I had a lot of fun making the app available for cloud, but it was even more fun to have that transition from I'm on server only, and now I have everything hosted at AWS. Uh, so it's just, yeah, to get joy. Yeah, joy is another word for fun, but
It
it's a bit whooshy in a sense. But people tend to, or at least I think, and I would hope that people recognize the feeling when they have fun.
might be easier to
And
go the
if you
other
do
way though.
that, then do that more.
So it might be easier to go the other way though, right? Which is like identify what isn't fun for you and eliminate that. Get rid of that.
Yeah, yeah, you can do, or you can go either way. Like, figure out what you don't like and don't do that, or figure out what you like and
And
do
just
that
do
more.
more of that.
But in the sense, you have this feeling, and this feeling is either it gives you joy or it doesn't. Or at least I tend to be very black and white in that sense. Either it gives you joy or it doesn't.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, don't do it, or figure out a way to not have to do it, so that you can focus more on the things that you like. Uh, and that's basically how I try to do it. And sometimes it works out, and sometimes you hit your head on the wall, and you need to figure out what the hell you did wrong, so you don't have to do that again the next day. But that's also part of the joy, to eliminate the stuff that you don't like to do.
Cool. Well, Mark, thank you so much for taking the time and out of your busy schedule. I know it's not a holiday for you, so you probably have a lot of work to do. um, again, it
Thanks so
was
much
great
for having
meeting.
me.
It was great meeting you, and I hope to actually spend more than 10 seconds with you next year.
Oh
So,
yeah, definitely. We'll look each other up.
yep. All right, Mark. Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you, man.
A huge thanks to our sponsor Resolution for making this video possible. Make sure you check out Resolution's out of office assistant for Jira and JSM in the link down below.